Dr. Jun Park stepped off the small shuttle onto the red soil of Varaxi Prime, squinting against the harsh light of the twin suns overhead. His heart raced with excitement and scholarly anticipation. After 3 years of applying for this research grant, he was finally here to study the mysterious Varaxi people. "Remember, Dr. Park," crackled the voice of Commander Yuna from his communicator. "Observation only." The Galactic Science Council was very clear about non-interference. "I understand," Jun replied, adjusting his translator at his throat. "I'm just grateful they've allowed me this close. The Varaxi have rejected most human contact until now." The tall, blue-skinned Varaxi waiting for him stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her skin had a faint shimmer that caught the light as she moved toward him. "I am Elder Neri," she said, her words flowing through his translator with only a slight delay. "You are the human scholar." Jun bowed respectfully. "Yes, Elder. Dr. Jun Park, sonanthropologist from Earth University. Thank you for allowing me to observe your culture." Elder Neri's 4 eyes, 2 large ones and 2 smaller ones above, blinked in sequence. "You arrive at a fortunate time. The choosing ceremony begins today. You may observe, as you requested." Jun could barely contain his excitement. The choosing was mentioned in the few existing reports about Varaxi culture, but no outsider had ever been permitted to witness it. "I am deeply honored," he said, following Elder Neri toward the settlement. The Varaxi village was a collection of dome-shaped structures arranged in concentric circles. In the center was a large open area where many Varaxi had gathered. Females, with their elaborate head crests, outnumbered the males by at least 3 to 1. Elder Neri led Jun to a spot at the edge of the gathering. "You will stand here. You may be addressed during the ceremony. Answer truthfully and act naturally." Before Jun could ask for clarification, she walked away to join the other elders. A younger female Varaxi approached him, her head crest not yet fully developed. "I am Hannah," she said. "I will explain what I can. The choosing selects the most worthy male to continue our lineage." Jun nodded, taking mental notes. "A mating selection ritual. Fascinating." Hannah tilted her head. "It is more. The chosen one must prove worthy in mind, body, and spirit. Only then may he claim the right to mate with the eligible females of the tribe." A deep horn sounded, and the crowd fell silent. 3 male Varaxi stepped forward, each wearing ceremonial armor that accentuated their muscular forms. "The candidates," Hannah whispered. Elder Neri raised her hands. "The choosing begins. First challenge, knowledge of life." Attendants brought forth tables with various plants, minerals, and small creatures. Each candidate moved to a table and began identifying items when prompted by the elders. Suddenly, Elder Neri turned toward Jun. "Human observer, approach." Jun froze. This wasn't part of the plan. Hannah nudged him forward. "They wish you to participate as a control subject," she whispered. "It is an honor." Hesitantly, Jun approached the 4th table. Elder Neri pointed to a red-leafed plant. "Identify," she commanded. Jun studied it, recognizing it from his research. "This appears to be Varaxi bloodleaf. It has medicinal properties for treating skin infections." Elder Neri's eyes widened slightly. She pointed to another specimen. "This is nightsong fungus," Jun said. "It grows only during your smaller moon's full phase." The challenges continued. Drawing on his extensive research, Jun identified most specimens correctly. The crowd murmured with increasing interest. "The knowledge challenge is complete," announced Elder Neri. Second challenge, physical prowess. The 3 Varaxi males moved to an obstacle course. To Jun's surprise, he was again summoned to participate. "I'm not physically adapted to." He began. "Participate with honor," Hannah encouraged. "Do your best." The course was brutal. Climbing walls, leaping across pits, crawling under barriers. The Varaxi males moved with natural grace. Jun struggled but refused to quit. His human flexibility allowed him to squeeze through narrow passages that the bulkier Varaxi found challenging. His lighter weight let him cross unstable bridges more quickly. When he finished, last, but not by much, he was breathing hard. The crowd seemed impressed by his determination. "The human has endurance," someone remarked. The third challenge tested problem-solving. Each participant faced a puzzle box. June's human fingers, more nimble than Varaxi digits, worked the intricate mechanisms efficiently. He completed his puzzle first, earning surprised looks from the onlookers. As the day progressed through more challenges, Jun realized the Varaxi were evaluating him alongside the actual candidates. He tried to perform well without outshining the others, not wanting to cause offense. The final challenge came at sunset. The 4 participants stood in a circle. Elder Neri approached each, asking questions. "What is your greatest strength?" she asked Jun. "Curiosity," he answered honestly. "The desire to understand." "What would you sacrifice for the tribe?" Jun considered carefully. "I believe knowledge and understanding should be shared, even at personal cost. I would sacrifice comfort, safety, even recognition to preserve knowledge that benefits many." His answers seemed to please the elders. When the questioning finished, the participants were led to a fire circle for the final ritual. "Now catch the staff of choosing," Elder Neri announced, holding up a decorated rod. She threw it high into the air above the center of the circle. The 3 Varaxi males positioned themselves, shoving each other for advantage. Jun stepped back, wanting to avoid interference. But the staff, caught in a sudden gust of wind, veered toward him. Instinctively, he reached up and caught it before it could hit him in the face. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Silence fell. "The human has caught the staff," Elder Neri announced, her voice carrying a note of shock. Jun tried to hand the staff back. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interfere." "The choosing is complete," Elder Neri declared. "The human, Jun Park, has prevailed in all trials. He is the champion." The 3 Varaxi males looked at him with disbelief and growing anger. The females of the tribe studied him with new interest. "Wait," Jun said, confused. "What does that mean?" Hannah approached, her expression a mixture of amusement and concern. "It means, human, that you have won our mating ritual. According to our oldest laws, the females of our tribe are now yours to claim." Jun stood frozen, the ceremonial staff still in his hands, as he realized what had just happened. He had not been invited as an observer after all. He had been an unwitting participant, and now he was trapped in a cultural disaster of galactic proportions. The silence that followed Hannah's words seemed to stretch for eternity. Jun stood motionless, the ceremonial staff heavy in his hands, as dozens of Varaxi eyes studied him with various expressions of shock, anger, and curiosity. "There must be a mistake," Jun finally managed to say. "I was invited as an observer, not a participant." Elder Neri approached, her tall form towering over him. "There is no mistake, human champion. You were invited to participate in the choosing. Your embassy approved this cultural exchange." Jun's mind raced. Something had been lost in translation, catastrophically lost. "My embassy thinks I'm here to observe a cultural ceremony, not to claim mating rights with our females." Elder Neri finished for him. "The purpose of the choosing is clear to all." One of the defeated Varaxi males stepped forward. His name was Da, and his face ridges darkened with anger. "This is an outrage. A human cannot be champion. Our bloodlines will be tainted." Several females hissed at this comment, but others nodded in agreement. The crowd began to split into factions, arguing loudly in their native language too fast for Jun's translator to keep up. "I need to contact my embassy," Jun said, reaching for his communicator. Hannah placed a blue hand on his arm. "That would be unwise until the ceremony is complete. To leave now would bring great dishonor." "What ceremony? I thought the choosing was over." "The choosing selected you as champion. Now comes the claiming. where you select your first mate from the eligible females. June felt dizzy. This was rapidly becoming the worst cultural misunderstanding in human-alien relations history. Elder Neri raised her hands, silencing the crowd. The human needs time to understand our ways. We will pause until tomorrow's rising of the second sun. Champion, Hana will explain our customs to you. The rest of you, prepare for the claiming feast. As the crowd dispersed, June was led to a small domed structure at the edge of the village. Inside was simple but comfortable, with strange cushions and a low table. This is the champion's dwelling, Hana explained. You will stay here during your time with us. Hana, I can't go through with this, June said once they were alone. Humans don't. We have different customs about mating. This violates all our protocols for alien contact. Hana sat across from him. If you reject our ways after winning the choosing, it will cause great harm to our tribe. The 3 males you defeated will claim that humans mock our sacred traditions. Relations between our peoples could be damaged forever. June activated his communicator. Commander Yuna, we have a situation. The commander's voice came through clearly. Dr. Park, what's happening? We've received strange messages from the Varaxi elders about a human champion. June explained the situation as Hana watched with interest. This is a diplomatic nightmare, Commander Yuna groaned. The approval documents must have been mistranslated. We thought you were being invited to observe their equivalent of an academic competition. What do I do now? June asked desperately. Don't make it worse, the commander ordered. Foreign Minister Kim is already on her way, but she won't arrive for 3 days. Until then, stall. Don't officially reject their customs, but don't claim any mates either. After ending the call, Joan turned to find Hana studying him with her 4 eyes. Your people are upset, she observed. Yes, there's been a serious misunderstanding. Hana tilted her head. Perhaps the Great Mother has plans we don't understand. Great Mother, she who created all life. Our legends say she sometimes creates paths that seem wrong, but lead to right places. June sighed. Right now, this path seems impossible. A knock at the door interrupted them. Hana opened it to reveal a procession of young female Varaxi. Each carried gifts, clothing, food, strange artifacts. Offering gifts to the champion is traditional, Hana explained as the females entered and presented their items with formal bows. June accepted each gift awkwardly, thanking the givers. Most left quickly, but one lingered. She was taller than Hana, with an elaborate head crest and striking purple markings on her blue skin. I am Suna, daughter of Elder Neri, she said, her voice musical through the translator. I bring you knowledge. She handed June what appeared to be a data crystal. Thank you, June said, genuinely grateful for something he might actually use. Suna studied him openly. You are smaller than I expected, but your mind is strong. I observed how you solved the puzzle box. Your approach was unexpected. Before June could respond, shouts erupted outside. Hana rushed to the door. It's Da and his supporters, she reported. They're demanding the challenge of blood. Suna's eyes narrowed. This is not good. The door burst open and Da entered, flanked by 2 other defeated males. Human, he spat. I challenge your claim. Fight me for the right to our females. June stood his ground despite being a foot shorter than the angry alien. I didn't seek this position, Da. There's been a misunderstanding. Coward, Da snarled. You mock our ways by refusing to fight. Elder Neri appeared in the doorway. Silence. The challenge of blood is forbidden until after the claiming. You know this, Da. The human will never complete the claiming, Da argued. He stalls for time. A commotion at the village perimeter drew everyone's attention. A group of Varaxi guards were escorting the human woman in diplomatic uniform. Minister Kim, June breathed in relief. She's early. The foreign minister approached with dignified steps, her translator active. Elder Neri, I request immediate audience regarding our cultural exchange. Elder Nari bowed slightly. The human diplomat is welcome. We will speak in the council chamber. As the elders left with Minister Kim, Da gave Jun one last threatening look. This isn't finished, human. Alone again with Hana and Suna, Jun sank onto a cushion. This is a disaster. Perhaps not, Suna said thoughtfully. Your arrival coincides with a greater crisis than hurt male pride. What do you mean? Hana and Suna exchanged glances. Our tribe faces extinction, Hana said quietly. For generations, our numbers dwindle. Children are fewer each cycle, and many are born weak. Genetic problems, Jun asked, his scientific mind engaging. Suna nodded. The elders believe new bloodlines might save us. When you arrived, some saw possibility. But human and Varaxi DNA couldn't possibly. Not direct breeding. Suna interrupted. But human science might help where our methods have failed. Jun considered this new information. So some of your people want my help, while others see me as an intruder. Yes, Hana confirmed. And tonight's feast will force you to choose a position. Hours later, dressed in borrowed Varaxi ceremonial clothes that draped awkwardly on his human frame, Jun entered the feast area. Hundreds of Varaxi had gathered. Minister Kim sat with the elders, her face carefully neutral. As Jun took his place at the main table, he could feel the weight of expectation from every direction. According to tradition, he would soon be asked to select his first mate from the eligible females. His answer would either cause a diplomatic incident or betray his own principles. Suna caught his eye from across the gathering and subtly pointed to the data crystal he tucked into his pocket. Something about her gesture suggested it might contain important information. Whatever happened next would shape relations between humans and Varaxi for generations to come. And Jun Park, who had only wanted to study alien culture, now found himself at the center of it all. The feast had reached its crucial moment. Jun sat at the head table, uncomfortably aware of hundreds of Varaxi eyes fixed on him. Elder Neri stood and raised her arms for silence. The time has come for our champion to make his first selection, she announced, her voice carrying across the gathering. As tradition demands, he may choose any unmated female of age. Minister Kim, seated nearby, gave Jun a subtle but urgent look. Their brief meeting before the feast had been clear. Delay without offense until they could find a diplomatic solution. Jun rose to his feet, his heart pounding. Elder Nari, honored Varaxi, I am deeply moved by the honor you have bestowed upon me. In human tradition, we have a custom called the period of consideration. He glanced at Minister Kim, who gave a tiny nod of encouragement. Before making such an important choice, a champion must take time to learn about those he might select. I request 3 days to speak with the eligible females and understand your ways better. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Elder Nari's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she considered his words. This is unusual, she said finally, but not unreasonable. The human may have his period of consideration. Relief washed over Jun, but it was short-lived. Dai stepped forward, his blue skin darkening with anger. This is another delay. The human makes a mockery of our sacred traditions. Da pointed an accusing finger at Jun. I demand the right of Carthel. The crowd gasped. Even without translation, Jun could tell this was serious. What is Carthel? He whispered to Hana, who had taken a position near him. Shadow challenge, she replied quietly. Day is claiming you won by trickery and demands the right to prove himself the true champion through tests of his choosing. Elder Nari's face ridges flattened in disapproval. Carthal is ancient and rarely invoked. Are you certain, Dai? I am, Dag growled. 3 challenges of my design. If the human fails anyone, he forfeits his position. Minister Kim started to protest, but Jun raised his hand. He had spent years studying cultural conflicts. This was a power play he understood. I accept on one condition, Jun said clearly. The challenges must be possible for a human to complete. I will not agree to swim in acid or breathe vacuum. This caused a ripple of what sounded like laughter among some of the Varaxi. Day's face darkened further. Agreed, Da hissed. First challenge. Tomorrow at dawn. Be at the Crystal Cave. As the feast broke up, Minister Kim hurried to Jun's side. This is exactly what we wanted to avoid, Dr. Park. Carthol could be dangerous. It buys us time, Jun replied, and showing respect for their traditions might help negotiations. Back in his quarters, Jun finally had a chance to examine the data crystal Suna had given him. He inserted it into his translator device, which projected the contents as holographic text. This is medical data, he murmured as he scrolled through genetic information and birth records. The pattern was clear and alarming. The Varaxi tribe was indeed facing a serious genetic bottleneck. Birth rates had fallen dramatically over generations, and genetic defects were increasing. A soft knock interrupted his reading. When he opened the door, Suna stood outside, her tall frame silhouetted against the night sky. You've seen the records, she said, not a question but a statement. Jun nodded. Your people are in trouble. Yes, and now you understand why some welcome an outsider as champion, while others, like Da, fear change. Suna entered and sat across from him. The Crystal Cave Challenge is designed to fail you. Da knows human eyes cannot see in the ultraviolet spectrum. What exactly is the challenge? You must navigate the cave's maze and retrieve a ceremonial token. But the path markers are visible only in ultraviolet light, which Varaxi can see naturally. Jun frowned. That violates our agreement. The challenge isn't possible for a human. Da will claim ignorance of human limitations. Suna leaned forward. But I can help you. There is a preparation, a temporary eye treatment that allows limited ultraviolet vision. It's painful but effective. Why would you help me? Jun asked cautiously. Suna's 4 eyes fixed on him. Because I believe in survival above tradition. My mother, Elder Nari, agrees privately but cannot show it publicly. Before Jun could reply, shouts erupted outside. They rushed to the window to see a group of young Varaxi males vandalizing the human shuttle that had brought Minister Kim. Da's supporters, Suna growled. They grow bolder. Guards rushed to disperse the vandals, but the message was clear. Anti-human sentiment was spreading. Dawn came quickly. Jun, his eyes burning from Suna's treatment, stood at the entrance to the Crystal Cave. A crowd had gathered to witness the challenge. Da smirked confidently. The rules are simple, Elder Nari announced. The human must find the token and return within 1 sun cycle. No assistance is permitted once he enters. Jun looked at the dark cave mouth, already detecting faint purple glows that would have been invisible without the treatment. His eyes watered painfully, but he could see the markers. I'm ready, he said. The cave was a nightmare of twisting passages and false paths. The ultraviolet markers pulsed weakly in his enhanced vision, each pulse sending needles of pain through his eyes. He followed them carefully, mapping the route in his mind. Hours passed as he ventured deeper. The air grew cold and thin. Finally, he reached a small chamber where a crystal token glowed on a pedestal. As he reached for it, a sound made him turn. Da stood blocking the exit, holding a sharp crystal blade. You should not have been able to find this place, Da said, his voice echoing. Someone has helped you. No matter. You will not leave this cave. Killing me would violate your own laws, Jun said, trying to keep his voice steady. Who said anything about killing? Injuries happen in the dark. Da stepped closer. Surrender your position willingly, and you may leave unarmed. Jun's mind raced. Physical confrontation with the larger, stronger alien would end badly. He needed another approach. Before you decide, you should know that I've seen the genetic records, Jun said. Your tribe is dying, Ha. Within 5 generations, there may be no Varaxi left here. Da hesitated. What do you know of our genetics? Enough to understand why some of your people see me as an opportunity, not a threat. Human science might help where your methods have failed. And in exchange, you claim our females. Dai snarled. No. In exchange, our peoples work together for mutual benefit. June took a calculated risk and stepped forward. I have no interest in claiming mates, Da. I want to help save your people. Confusion crossed Da's face. If you don't wish to claim mates, why participate in the choosing? I didn't know what it was. There was a misunderstanding. For a long moment, Da stood silent. Then he lowered his blade slightly. Take the token. Complete the challenge. We will speak more of this misunderstanding. June reached for the crystal token, relief washing over him. But as his fingers closed around it, the cave floor began to shake violently. Rocks fell from the ceiling as both men lost their balance. Quake, Dai shouted. We must leave now. The path back was chaos. Passages collapsed behind them as they ran. June's painful ultraviolet vision flickered and failed completely, leaving him blind in the darkness. He felt Dai grab his arm. This way, human. Move. They emerged into daylight just as a major section of the cave collapsed. Covered in dust and breathing heavily, they faced the shocked crowd. The challenge is complete, June gasped, holding up the token. And I think Dai and I have reached an understanding. Dai looked at him with new respect. The human speaks truth. He has passed the first challenge, and perhaps taught me something as well. As medics rushed to treat their cuts and bruises, June caught Suna's eye in the crowd. She gave him a subtle nod of approval. The first challenge was over. But the greater challenges, saving a species and bridging two worlds, were just beginning. The medical tent buzzed with activity as healers tended to June's injuries. His eyes still burned from the ultraviolet treatment, and cuts from falling rocks stung across his arms. At the far end of the tent, Varaxi healers surrounded Da, whose injuries appeared more serious. Minister Kim entered, her face tight with concern. Dr. Park, are you all right? This has gone too far. I'm pulling you out immediately. No, Jun said firmly. Something important is happening here. Da and I reached a kind of understanding in that cave. An understanding with the alien who just tried to kill you. Minister Kim raised an eyebrow. He could have left me to die in the collapse, but he helped me escape. Jun winced as a healer applied medicine to his cuts, and I think he's starting to see that I'm not here to claim their females or mock their traditions. Minister Kim lowered her voice. The Galactic Council is in an uproar over this incident. They're demanding we extract you before the diplomatic situation deteriorates further. If we leave now, we lose any chance to help the Varaxi, Jung argued. Their population is facing a genetic crisis. They need our scientific expertise. That's not our problem, Dr. Park. With respect, Minister, it became our problem when I was named champion. Jun sat up straighter despite his pain. I have an idea that might solve everything, but I need your diplomatic support. Before she could respond, Elder Nari entered the tent. Her elaborate headdress brushed the ceiling as she approached Jun's bed. The champion has proven his courage, she announced loudly enough for all to hear. The first challenge is complete. Da has requested that the remaining challenges be postponed until tomorrow, while both competitors recover. That's generous of him, Jun said, surprised. Elder Neri's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. He said the cave taught him something about humans. She paused, then added more quietly, Champion, I request your presence at the council chamber once the healers release you. There are matters we must discuss. 2 hours later, Jun entered the domed council chamber, accompanied by Minister Kim. Inside, the 7 tribal elders sat in a semicircle. To Jun's surprise, Dai was also present, his arm in a sling. The human champion honors us. Elder Neri began formally. We gather to discuss a matter of great importance. Another elder, whose name Jun recalled was Tai, spoke next. The cave quake is seen by many as an omen. The Great Mother herself intervened in the challenge. Some say it shows her disapproval of a human champion. Added a third elder. Others believe it shows her desire for our peoples to work together. Minister Kim stepped forward. The Earth delegation has a proposal that might satisfy all parties. Elder Neri nodded for her to continue. Dr. Park has studied your genetic records, Minister Kim said. He believes Earth science could help address the fertility issues facing your tribe without requiring traditional mating approaches. Murmurs spread among the elders. Dai shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. We propose a scientific exchange, Minister Kim continued. Dr. Park would serve as a symbolic champion, fulfilling your traditions, but would not claim mating rights. Instead, Earth would send medical experts to work with your healers on genetic solutions. Elder Ta frowned. And what does Earth gain from this arrangement? June spoke up. Knowledge. The chance to learn from your culture, your science, your understanding of this planet. The Varaxi have thrived here for thousands of years. Your adaptations and techniques could benefit human colonies on similar worlds. A trade of knowledge, Elder Nari mused. It has merit. Day finally broke his silence. And what of tradition? The champion must claim at least one mate to fulfill the choosing. June had anticipated this objection. On Earth, we have a concept called symbolic marriage. It's a union of alliance rather than mating. Perhaps something similar could satisfy tradition without violating either of our cultural norms. The council chamber fell silent as the elders considered this idea. June held his breath, aware that everything hinged on this moment. Elder Neri spoke again. We must consult the tribal records. There may be precedent in our history. Until then, the challenges will continue as planned. As they left the chamber, Jun noticed Suna waiting outside. She fell into step beside him. You did well, she said quietly. The council is divided, but many see wisdom in your proposal. What about the rest of your people? Will they accept a symbolic champion? Some will resist, Suna admitted. But the cave quake has made many reconsider. When two enemies emerge together from danger, it changes perspectives. Jun glanced back at Dae, who was speaking with Elder Neri. He's still planning the second challenge, isn't he? Yes. The challenge of minds. Suna's expression turned serious. It tests wisdom and decision-making. Dad will create a scenario where any choice causes harm. There is no winning move. A no-win scenario, Jun murmured. We have those in our training programs too. That evening, Jun sat in his quarters, studying Varaxi cultural texts that Suna had provided. A plan was forming in his mind. If he couldn't win the second challenge by traditional means, perhaps he could change the rules of engagement. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Hana, looking troubled. Dae's supporters are gathering at the village edge, she reported. They speak of taking action if the council accepts your proposal. What kind of action? Some talk of forcing you to leave. Others suggest more permanent solutions. Hana's 4 eyes blinked nervously. You should not be alone tonight. I will stand guard. Jun shook his head. That would only inflame tensions. But please, ask Minister Kim to meet me here. We need to accelerate our plans. Dawn broke with tense expectation. The entire tribe gathered at the village center, where Dai waited with a strange device, a hexagonal table covered with glowing symbols. The challenge of minds, he announced as June approached. You must solve the scenario of sacrifice. Dai activated the device, which projected a holographic image of a Varaxi settlement under attack from predators. Small figures ran in panic. You control the village defenses, Dad explained. You must choose which areas to protect. Not all can be saved. June studied the simulation carefully. It was indeed a no-win scenario. Any choice meant sacrificing some villagers to save others. Instead of selecting defense points, June addressed the crowd. This challenge tests whether I would make the same choices a Varaxi would make. But that misses the point of having different species work together. He turned to Da. I don't accept your premise. In real life, I wouldn't be making these decisions alone. I would be consulting with Varaxi leaders, combining our different perspectives to find better solutions than either of us could see alone. Day's face darkened. You refuse the challenge. No, I propose we solve it together. You and I, working as allies, not competitors. That's the real test of whether our peoples can cooperate. A murmur ran through the crowd. Elder Neri stepped forward, her face unreadable. The human offers wisdom, she said finally. Day, what say you? For a long moment, Day stood frozen in indecision. Then, slowly, he extended his hand toward June. Let us see if two minds are better than one human. As they bent together over the simulation, something shifted in the air, a tension breaking, a new possibility emerging. Whatever happened with the challenge, June knew a more important victory had already been won. 3 months had passed since the dramatic conclusion of the Carthel challenges. The Varaxi village had transformed. Where once there had been only traditional dome structures, now several new buildings stood. A research center, a medical facility, and a cultural exchange hall. Humans and Varaxi worked side by side in all of them. June walked through the village, nodding to both humans and Varaxi as he passed. Children from both species played together in the central area, inventing games that combined elements from both cultures. The sight always made him smile. Champion Park called a familiar voice. June turned to see Dai approaching. The large Varaxi no longer looked at him with hostility, but with the measured respect of a colleague. Just June is fine, Dai. We've been over this, June replied with a smile. Old habits, Dai said, falling into step beside him. The council wishes to see you. The first results from the genetic therapy trials are ready. They walked together toward the council chamber, a journey that would have been unthinkable just months ago. June still remembered the turning point clearly, the moment when he and Dai had worked together on the challenge of minds, finding a solution that saved all the simulated villagers by combining Varaxi's strength with human creativity. Do you ever regret it? Dai asked suddenly. The way things turned out. June considered the question. Regret being named champion by accident? No, it was terrifying at the time. But look what came of it. They entered the council chamber where Elder Neri presided over a mixed group of Varaxi elders and human scientists. Among them sat Suna, now the official head of the Joint Genetic Research Project. Her gaze met June's briefly, a private moment of connection before she turned back to the presentation. The preliminary results are promising, she was saying. The modified therapy has increased fertility rates in the test group by 37%, with no negative side effects. Elder Neri nodded with satisfaction. And the genetic diversity markers? Improving, replied Dr. Lee, the human geneticist working with Suna. We're seeing reduced expression of the problematic genes in the recent births. If this trend continues, the population should stabilize within 2 generations. A wave of relief passed through the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Varaxi tribe had real hope for the future. None of this would have been possible without the symbolic champion agreement, Elder Neri said, nodding toward June. The wisdom of the Great Mother is revealed in unexpected ways. After the meeting, June walked to the edge of the village where the ceremonial grounds stretched toward the distant mountains. Here, 3 months ago, he had participated in the symbolic claiming ceremony that had satisfied Varaxi tradition while respecting human diplomatic constraints. He had claimed the right to represent Earth in all dealings with the Varaxi tribe, becoming a cultural ambassador rather than a mate. Suna had been appointed as his counterpart, representing Varaxi interests. Together, they formed a bridge between worlds. Remembering the ceremony, Suna asked, appearing beside him. She had a habit of moving silently despite her tall frame. It was quite a day, June admitted. I was terrified I'd say the wrong thing and undo all our progress. Suna's 4 eyes blinked in amusement. You did mispronounce the sacred oath, but most found it charming rather than offensive. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the twin suns begin their descent toward the horizon. The red light bathed Suna's blue skin in purple hues. The Earth University team arrives tomorrow, Jun said. 20 students eager to learn Varaxi culture and biology. And our young scholars are equally eager to learn about Earth, Suna replied. Though some are concerned about your planet's gravity and atmosphere, the environmental suits will help them adjust. Jun turned to face her. Did you ever imagine things would change this much, this quickly? Suna considered the question. There was a story my mother told me as a child, about a great storm that destroyed our ancient village, forcing the survivors to find a new way to live. From disaster came innovation and strength. She gestured toward the thriving village. Sometimes the universe creates exactly the disaster we need. A small group of Varaxi children ran past, followed by 2 human researchers. One child stopped and presented Jun with a small carved figure, half human, half Varaxi. For you, champion, the child said shyly. Teacher says you are both but neither. Jun accepted the gift with a bow. It's beautiful. Thank you. As the child ran off, Suna examined the carving. Both but neither. An accurate description of your position. You remain champion, but have claimed no mates. You represent Earth, but live among Varaxi. Speaking of living arrangements, Jun said, Minister Kim says the permanent human settlement will be completed next month. I'll finally have proper quarters instead of this adapted Varaxi dwelling. Will you miss the dome? Suna asked, her tone casual but her eyes watchful. Parts of it, Jun admitted. The way the light filters through the shell at dawn. The sound of the wind around its curves at night. He paused. The closeness to the village center, to the people I've come to know. A call from across the village interrupted them. Hana was waving urgently. The translator project needs your attention, she called. The new system is mixing up emotional markers again. Jun sighed. Duty calls. We'll continue this conversation later. Suna nodded. At the evening meal, I have something important to discuss with you anyway. As Jun hurried toward the research center, he reflected on how completely his life had changed. He had come to study the Varaxi as an outsider, an observer. Now he was embedded in their society, helping shape its future while they, in turn, influenced humanity's understanding of the universe. The accidental champion had become something neither culture had words for, a living bridge between worlds, proof that misunderstandings could sometimes lead to the most meaningful connections. That evening, as both species gathered to share food and stories under the 3 moons of Varaxi Prime, Jun looked around at what they had built together. Day caught his eye from across the gathering and raised a cup in silent toast. Elder Nari was deep in conversation with the human ambassadors about expanding the exchange program. Young Varaxi were teaching human visitors their traditional songs. And beside him sat Suna, her expression thoughtful as she prepared to share whatever important matter was on her mind. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not as human and Varaxi, but as people who had found common ground among the stars. I have been thinking, Suna began, her voice soft but clear, about the next phase of our agreement. The symbolic champion bond has served its purpose well, but perhaps it is time to consider a more permanent arrangement between our peoples. Jun looked into her 4 thoughtful eyes and realized that the greatest adventure of his accidental journey was just beginning.